everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for a new episode of A New Go of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthemum.
Hello, I'm John Lee.
And I'm Sarah Williams.
And today's episode is brought to you by letter C. We figured we'll make it a fun back to school episode, back to the basics. And it's very timely with everything that's going on in the market right now. So John, why don't you kick us off and set the stage for us?
Yeah, so when I was thinking about the things I want to talk about today, pardon the pun, I started to see this vision of all these commonalities with the letter C. And so, it's been tough times for a lot of people in the last few months. And I thought, hey, let's turn down the stress and just have a little fun, go back to Sesame Street and, start with the basics, like you said. I actually want to talk about this from a couple of levels. One is from a business operational level. At the end of the day, we're all working for companies. The companies have business goals. They got to make sales, they got to make profit. And, we want to make sure we understand the big picture here. And, I want to, turn it down to the focus of the sales and marketing functions in particular later on. But I think the way we want to approach it today is we're all going to talk to our strengths. I actually come from a financial background. I have an MBA in finance. I've worked in a Fortune 100 company as a controller and a cost accountant. I've also been part of, a Silicon Valley startup. So I've raised money and now I have my own little small business here, which, we got to watch the cash like everyone else. So I want to bring that perspective in there because a lot of our builders are small builders and are family run all the way to big corporations. And then, with Sarah and her extensive background in this industry, she's been an OSC in marketing and sales and Anya's been a realtor in sales. So I think if we can bring all of our minds together and share how we can confront this downturn, maybe it may give us, our industry, some guidance and maybe some hope. So let me get started here. High level here in our industry, we've seen this downturn happening. And as an investor or even a business operator, one of the biggest concerns is in a downturn, if you're actually in this very big C industry, which is called cyclical, which is what we are. So, we really go up and down with what happens in the marketplace. And so we are extra sensitive to that, especially us being a visualization content company. That C is like the canary in the coal mine. We see it coming sooner than everyone else because when the builders stop ordering content, we know that they're struggling. But at the same time, we're usually one of the first ones to pick up when they start ordering again. So it's interesting to be in that role in this industry. The big C that we want to talk about today is actually, cash is critical. And you've seen that from Wall Street to Main Street businesses. And it's very broad this time around because, as Wall Street started pulling back money, you saw your stock shares drop in value, and you see everything from big tech to small startup technology companies are having to lay off a lot of people, cut back costs, take extraordinary measures. And we are starting to see some of that because a lot of that is related to housing. One good C that we're not a commodity industry. If you're in a cyclical commodity industry, you could really be suffering. You're totally at the mercy of the market, but we won't get too much into that. So the big capital C that we're going to talk about today is the cash capital. And I'm probably starting to bore you guys, but hang in there. We're not going to talk about this all day, but I just want to say that cash flow is the lifeblood of businesses. And as we know right now with inflation is the big cash killer because it really devalues your cash's purchasing power. So whatever your need is for cash, you probably need even more of it now. So just want to give you some financial guidance here, because how do you keep or generate cash? So I'm going to go down a little hierarchy of my methodology. Number one, C, conserve cash. And maybe one of the ways you can do this is, get paid by checks instead of credit cards, or maybe from your payables, you start to pay later. I won't turn into an accountant here, so I won't go into all the details here because I'm sure you have accountants that help do this. But, number one, conserve cash. Number two, try to control and contain your costs. Don't go on extravagant spending sprees, but at the same time, don't do these other C's. Don't cut corners because, you want to make sure that you're lean and mean, but you don't cut to the bone. A third thing is to actually cash conversion or convert things into cash. And this is where the C of current assets are your assets that are liquidatable within a year. And those are like what you've seen with a lot of builders and iBuyers right now, they're liquidating their inventories. They're turning those, they don't want to be holding on to these inventory of homes in that they're paying for that high cost of capital and carrying costs. They don't want to be, stuck with that. So they are starting to liquidate inventories as prices are dropping. The other current assets are like CDs. Maybe don't buy 1 year CD anymore, keep it in cash, collect your receivables faster. The fourth thing is milk your cash cows. And that is a business term, your cash cows. And your cash cows are really your businesses that are the real generating, the ones that really generate the cash for your businesses. And those are usually wrapped around your other C's, your core competencies and your competitive advantages. And one of the things to milk those cash cows is go back to your core clients, because they're usually the ones that you can start to upsell, cross-sell, and those are the ones that, that you can probably depend on. The fifth thing is to control your cost of capital. And that's really been important here as interest rates have been skyrocketing here. So one of the things you can try to do is mitigate your interest rates by generating cash, like we're talking about, so you don't have to go and borrow. But the other thing is to maybe try to lock in rates or get in those adjustable rates as you can now, so you don't get stuck with what we assume is going to be rising rates in the future, at least the prime rates. Number 6 is where a lot of people go right to this, and that's why I'm holding this as later on. Number 6, if all those things don't work and you're not generating enough cash, then you cut the costs and the more extreme measures. I mean, a lot of the big companies, they're going right to that cutting costs. And I just think that's a short-term move and it could have long-term detrimental impacts. But, you cut costs, improve those operating cash flows if you can't get it, if you can't get that, or you can't get the outside investment cash flow to raise capital. But all of that said, and all my love for cash is not the only C capital that we need. We also need to focus on something that's not on the books, not on the ledgers, and that's the human capital. In the tough economic times, the high cost of marketing and sales overhead is often the obvious cash capital to cut. It's, we just cut overhead. Marketing, we don't need that. Sales, there's nothing going on anyway. And so they immediately start to cut, the heads, because it cuts cash. But if marketing and sales can improve that customer relationship, that's the big C, because the biggest C overall is focusing on the customer, is improve those customer relationships and experiences via these 3 methodologies and areas in sales and marketing. Connect, communicate, and collaborate with your customers. Then I think sales and marketing can show the tremendous value of their human capital to sustain, strengthen, and even grow their businesses in a recession. So let me start off with the marketing department. We're going to go from marketing and then to OSCs, which has now become the glue between marketing and sales. So Sarah will talk about OSCs later, and then we'll wrap it up with Anya with sales. So back to basics here. Marketing's goal is to connect the big C between buyers and sellers. It's been crazy in the last couple of years where marketing has actually been told, disconnect. We don't care about these buyers. There's too many of them, they're headaches and everything. We need to get back to reconnecting with the buyers and sellers. And how do you do that? Technology improves those connections, and with more interactive and personalized digital, these other 2 C's of marketing, content and channels. You need to go back and try to really connect with your buyers through more engaging content and channels. And part of that starts off with a customer-centric approach instead of a seller-centric approach. In the last couple of years, we've been taking it as totally as a seller-centric approach. It's like, come to me, and if I don't care to talk to you, I don't talk to you. Now the market is changing to more of a buyer's market. So as part of that change, we have to quickly adapt in what I'm terming as push and versus pull marketing. I don't think that's an actual MBA term, but this is what I see. Back then, they didn't have these opportunities to do this. Now we do with e-commerce. Switch from push to pull marketing. Push marketing is the more traditional approach. It really treats customers like generic herds that you drive to a destination like a store or a sales center. Pull marketing requires drawing them in, or you actually leading them to where you want them to go. But the pull marketing requires knowing what the customers want and then giving them control. That's something that marketers didn't have the capability to do, actually, in real time online. Pull marketing meets each individual buyer where he or she is at in the sales process, and only when they need or ask for help. So what we're doing with pull marketing, it's more of a concierge versus a shepherding approach. Online e-commerce and omni-channel gives us that, all the way from social media, influencers, to Google searches, to online chats. Pull marketing is much more advanced, and it utilizes interactive content and data for higher levels of marketing, which is personalization, customization, experiential, and predictive marketing. Predictive marketing uses data and AI. We never really had that before. Push marketing mainly relies on presentation marketing. A lot of builders still use presentation marketing. They're just saying, hey, here's what we have, generic stuff. Come see us if you're interested, and we'll talk about it later. Pull utilizes these more advanced marketing techniques to provide a better customer experience. And what it also does is it moves the buyers down a sales funnel that marketing really didn't have much control over, because the buyers can now curate those leads online before passing it into sales. And the role of the OSC has been really critical to curate these online shoppers, because they can meet the buyers online. And whereas push just drives everyone quickly to an on-site sales person and have the salesperson push the buyers to buy, even though they don't know anything about the buyer or what they want.
I wanted to jump in here real quick and contribute my 2 cents to marketing stuff. So I think about this as a flywheel. So, you may be, as a marketing person, thinking about, okay, what can I use to attract my ideal audience? Like right now, it's all about the customer and making that connection to the customer, right? So when you think about traditional model home in person, when you're merchandising that model home, it's all about what's going to appeal to my ideal customer, and hopefully they get it right, because otherwise it can cost you a lot of money. With virtual model homes, it's a little bit easier, right? Because it doesn't cost as much money. You could make tweaks. So ideally, you're going to find your ideal customer avatar. You're going to figure out what model home and what potential furnishings, what decor is going to appeal to the customer. And then maybe you're going to create a video of that virtual tour. You send it to social media. I see it on social media. I'm like, wow, this looks great. I'm going to go check it out. When I click into it, you can deep link that directly into that virtual tour. So now it goes from passive engagement, me watching the video, to now me becoming an active participant through the interactive virtual tour. So now I can go in, I can interact. And what I mean by interact is, with virtual tours, you have an option of changing colors in the model home, excluding furniture or including furniture, seeing different options, what they look like. And so now as a consumer, as I engage through that, it in turn generates a ton of data, right? John mentioned data. And so now as a marketer, you can look in the back end and see not only the individual's journey and like what they've done, but you also can aggregate that data and see, okay, well, of all the people who bought in this community, these were their preferences as far as what the model home looked like. Maybe that was the model, and these are the color choices that they predominantly chose. So now you have better data to in turn go back out and change your marketing video to select those colors. So now when you go back out there to send it to the social media feed, you're attracting more of those people easier, because now it resonates better. And in turn, you can generate less expensive leads. So it's kind of like a wheel that you're going to redo over and over again. Right now, those customers come through, they make their choices, you get more data. The better data you get, you can again put it to marketing. So that's how I like to think about it, as a wheel that feeds all that information. And it's because of data.
And that's really next level marketing, where you're actually taking all that data and you're actually engaging the consumer much earlier in the process. Normally, it was a 2-step process where marketing collected a group of people or an audience, and then it drove them to a sales center to take a next step of learning more about the product. You're allowing the product to meet the customers wherever they're at, allow them to engage with it, design it, collect information, and even guide them. And so what you've done is actually shorten the whole marketing to sales process. The whole sales funnel has shortened, and at the same time, it's reduced fear, frustration, and risk. So that's all about that connection piece. If you can't connect with the audience immediately, they're going to be gone. In today's world, if I can't find it on Amazon, I mean, I'm going to move on. Or if I can't find what, they have a
You
very
can't find
short-
pricing. If you're like,
Yes.
where's the price for this? I'm out. We've done a bunch of podcasts leading up to this one. It's
Mhm.
like people are looking to exclude you. That is what their goal is. And people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter every single year. So if you don't give them what they want, you're out, you're done. And they move
Yes,
on.
and today with the interest rates and the pricing, having not just a design tool online, but having a real-time price and mortgage calculator that they can plug in their information and quickly see the results of what, if they can afford what they're buying, or maybe they can even afford more. So having those tools online really helps make the whole process more efficient for the consumer, but it also helps your bottom line in that, your marketing and sales people are be much more productive with the limited resources they have today. That is the first C, which is about connecting with the buyers and sellers. The next C is communication. Once you connect with a consumer, you have to create a dialogue and you have to keep them updated on what's going on. And the OSC role has emerged to be that bridge between online and on-site. So maybe Sarah, you want to talk a little bit about your OSC experience and how critical that is in today's business?
For those of you listening that don't know, I was an online sales counselor for 6 years, about a decade ago. So I was an online sales counselor through the downturn of that 2008 and moving forward through that for 6 years. So there's a lot to learn from what we did back then. We implemented CRMs for communication for those of us that were getting inbound leads to those that were sitting in the sales centers. So we could shorten that. Again, John already said, shorten the sales cycle. So that's the types of tools that we started doing about, just over a decade ago. But there's so many more tools and so much more technology that has advanced us outside of just the CRM. So we have things like chatbots. A lot of folks use live chat, which was kind of just coming on the scene about a decade ago. What I like is that you can literally send someone a text after they've shown up for their appointment to find out whether or not they liked what they saw, if that was the right community. The OSC gets that information and can now react and maybe rebook or reassign. So there's a lot of different ways you can leverage technology now that even the CRM, which I know some of my builders listening probably still aren't leveraging their CRM or may not even use a CRM, which hurts my heart just a bit because even my hair salon uses CRMs. Their vet uses CRMs. Every place you go has a CRM. And so you really need to take that to heart if you're not using that's a pretty basic tool. Other things, John, that really back and during, when we talk about now versus when we really, OSCs really emerged on the market, is that social media channels. You talked about omni-channel and meeting people where they are and how OSCs are really that person that kind of jumps in and kind of communicates. Social media, when people are showing up on the comments or the DMs, I'm not saying OSCs are the only person on your team that can do that, but they can actually jump in and comment, engage, and also book right from your social media feeds. So that was just emerging when the downturn happened during the last cycle. Now you can take advantage of that. You can take advantage of wherever your shopper is or wherever your consumers are, or where people are making comments, or whether they love you, whether they're unhappy, that you have people, and it takes people to do this, everybody. That's not something you can really put a robot in. You need someone that's human, that's listening, that's tuning in. We've talked about this on a couple different podcasts that we've done here at Anugo, that the people can jump in and interact in the comment feed, and everybody is watching. Social media, you used to be able to hide stuff before, hide feedback, but there's so many corners of the internet that we as builders don't have access to, that people are talking about us, that the ones that are the public forum, you really need to show up, and the OSC can be that person. And they're pretty much the most knowledgeable person on your team, that they can speak to communities, they can speak to situations. I mean, that's really their job, is to be the expert on the team. So that's why it makes for a great person.
as you were talking about the evolution of communication,
Yeah.
the way I see it is it started out with a lot of, phone conversations, you're actually talking to the people, and then it went to more texting and emailing, a lot of talking with your fingers. But one of the things that's really evolved in the last few years is visualization communication. If you look at the word visualization, obviously that's what we do as well. It's visualization takes the word visual and kind of communication, puts it together, because I think visual communication is something that easily transcends all languages, cultures, demographics. They may not know what it's called or how to describe it, but they know what they like when they see it. Gets everybody on the same page. Also elicits emotions. You think of how many things that you've seen that have inspired you and attracted you or disgusted you. And so if the OSCs can utilize all those different communication mediums and speak the language that the buyers want to speak and be on the same page, and then be able to be the point person to disseminate this back to the design department, back to the marketing department, forward to the sales department before they meet the buyer, using visualizations as a common medium online could be the ultimate communication tool for such a complex, costly, and custom product as new homes.
Right. And Anugo has a lot of those visualizations. That's what we do here at Anugo is all the visualizations, and you can share that in our insights tool. If you use our tools, our insights is a huge way for OSCs to take a peek to see what people are doing online. The on-site agents can also jump into insights, but there's a lot of different things there. The other thing when we're talking about communication and talking about how the OSC jumps in, we have a whole nother market that is kind of, a little controversial, and we have real estate agents in the mix. The OSC can be the concierge service for real estate agents. That was a huge market that we leveraged at two different builders the last two builders I worked at, that we leveraged those real estate agents, and the OSC was really the integral part and the point for all of those real estate agents, that you can make one phone call, you can save one email for a whole organization, for a whole home builder, and call that OSC and say, hey, what do you have available? What's going on? What's coming up? Is anything coming on the market? So when we're talking about collaboration and communication, the OSC, you leverage them for those real estate agents. I know we're talking about cutting costs and things like that, but when leads are down, can you really afford not to shut off a channel? And real estate agents are a channel that you're getting leads. You cannot afford to alienate, even though some people did alienate it during the pandemic when things were hot, when the market went on fire. You cannot afford to alienate a channel that's going to send you leads, when leads are what's going to keep you moving as a company at sales and cash. During the last, I keep calling it this last cycle, we leveraged those real estate agents. I showed up at offices, I attended meetings, we hosted events that sponsored for real estate agents. My last builder, we did Dine and Dash, and so they could come tour our homes. We bribed agents out to our sites. So when we're talking about OSCs doing all that, like I ran Point, I was the director of marketing, but also ran, the online sales division. We ran Point on all of that because our on-site agents, we wanted them closing. Getting back to John C's, on-site agents, they're closers. Everything leading, like all of that, the traffic and just pushing people to to get someone to purchase comes from the marketing team and the OSCs. It's our job to keep that flow of people and traffic and leads coming. And real estate agents, you cannot disregard them, and you have to get back to the C's. You got to get creative. You got to get creative and get them back into your model homes and getting them to communicate with you. And we bribed them with dinner. We bribed them with events. We bribed them with alcohol, prizes. We gave away a cruise. If you sold spec homes for us, you went on a cruise. And for one guest or, two people to go on a cruise, that sometimes was less than a commission check, or less money than giving them a whole point on commission, that they got a cruise out of it at the end of the year. So we got really creative to drive real estate agents to talk about us, to show up and to tour their clients through our spec homes and through our properties.
Back to the letter C's over there on the OSC piece. I've seen that last letter C be used to describe them as online sales counselors, because sometimes they're counseling, online sales consultants. They're giving advice to the businesses, to, to agents, to the customers. And then now even as a concierge, they're there at your beckoning call. So the OSCs, it really is a growing function. And, one of our friends at Shared Drive, Sherry Morton, she was just talking about how, OSCs are now the C and the kind of the center of the new circular sales funnel. Everything's evolving around them. They are the point person that's there to hold the customer from, almost beginning to end. So this brings us to our last C, which is really related to the sales function. And it's about collaboration. I mean, traditionally, salespeople have always just been the recipient of whatever customers come in their sales model door. But with a lot of the new technologies now, we can actually, bring them online, or at least to start to do things digitally, whether it's in person or remote. So maybe Anya, you can speak to some of those.
Absolutely. My closers, my C's, don't just sit there waiting for somebody to walk through the door, because chances are it ain't happening, or it's not happening as much as you'd like it to be. So you don't have to be passive. You can be active and meet your customers where they are, which oftentimes is online. And so those design tools, interactive design tools that we mentioned earlier, allow you to meet your consumers online. So with some of our design tools, your consumers are able to check out what the house looks like on the exterior, what packages on the interior. But your job as a concierge is to help guide them through that process. They're not experts, right? They have no idea what they're doing. It's awesome to be able to have this design tool, because now they're not just visualizing it in their head and thinking like, oh, I hope this turns out great. They can actually see what that looks like. But you've done this many, many times before with many customers. And so you can almost serve as a designer in a way to guide them through options. Hey, if you're looking at this floor plan and you're asking for all of these options, maybe this other floor plan actually makes better sense for you. Or based on what you're selecting, what you're liking, this particular option is something that my other customers have selected and liked, or check out this floor plan. So as a consumer, when you're using those design tools, what's great is that you are able to share your favorites to social media, or to send email to your loved ones, whether it's a realtor, whether it's your spouse. So that's automatic marketing again, right? You're sharing that marketing material to social media. Check out the house that I was able to design. But you can also actively collaborate, because buying a house, as John likes to say, is not something that you do by yourself, right? You have a team of experts around you.
Whether
whether it's your spouse, whether it's your real estate agent, whether it's your parents, how we love when the parents come in, and the dad, we all heard those stories. So this is an opportunity to get everybody involved through that collaborative design. So your shoppers have an option to share their designs and get feedback through collaboration online. So this is particularly helpful in the spouse-to-spouse situation, right? How many times have you had spouses come in for that final design meeting, and it's the first time they're seeing the stuff, and they can't seem to agree on anything? And next thing you know, that hour meeting turning into 5 hours. And instead of doing that, let them spend the 5 hours online, taking it back and forth, designing, looking at different options, talking about the budget, agreeing on the budget, disagreeing, but hopefully by the time they're ready to finalize it, they've gotten it all out of their system. So I love that feature for it. Now, one of the awesome features that Anugo recently rolled out, I guess not recently, but not many people know about it, is called live guided virtual tours. So when we think about virtual tours or visiting a virtual model, it's something that most people think of as customer doing on their own online. Well, we combine the experience of that collaborative experience of social experience with the virtual tour. So imagine if you have a family, and maybe that family is not even sitting at the same desk. Maybe the family is, husband and wife are at work at their separate desks, maybe their adult children are away from college, you can invite them to attend a virtual tour, which is live virtual tour. So all of them would log in independently. And you as a salesperson would be able to guide them through this virtual tour, just as you would in a normal model home, right? You don't want to necessarily, it's great that they can browse on their own, but as a salesperson, this is where you get to shine. This is where you get to point out things to them that they may not know. This is where you get to make those connections that, hey, you mentioned that fireplace is really important for you. Check out this fireplace option that we have. So this is where you get to contribute. But for the participants in the virtual tour, it's a really fun experience. I mean, when we were testing it out as a team at Inugo, I think we were laughing hysterically because we just had so much fun talking to each other, running around the house, because each person can do things independently. Kids can go off into the kids' room and check out what the kids' rooms are all about, where the wife can spend time in the kitchen, checking out the appliances or whatever else, and the husband can be hanging out in the basement, just like you would in a regular model home, right? Like, how often do you actually keep everybody together? You may start together, but they usually tend to separate. And so this virtual guided live tour allows you to essentially mimic that in-person interaction, but it's online. And as a salesperson, you get to gather all of the data from that. So you can see what the wife is looking at. So if she's particularly interested in the countertops, hey, maybe that's a great topic of conversation to follow up with. If a husband seems to be really interested in learning about what's behind the wall, and he's clicking on hotspots, discovering how the house is built, that's something you can talk to him about. Or maybe it's the green features he's looking at. So it gives you a lot of intel, which in turn gives you a great reason to follow up, because I know all of my salespeople hate to follow up. And usually we hate to follow up because we don't know what to say. But now with this insights, you can see exactly what your customers are doing. So it's great to be able to follow up. And then last thing I wanted to talk about is that, again, not necessarily reacting to your customers, but being proactive. Like, say you're sitting in a model home and you're not getting any leads, right? Like, it's just dead. You've tried everything, like, what else is there to do? Well, again, if you have those digital design tools at your fingertips, you can share them on social media and, essentially create your own marketing, create your own traffic, deep link into your community, into that model home, and share it with your network. As people start to play around with it, it catches people's eye. Hey, maybe they'll become that valuable customer. So I'd say, it does allow you to become more proactive and attracting your own customers rather than just sitting there waiting for consumers to show up.
As everyone's listening, there's so much technology that we've talked about, and typically the online sales counselor has been the heavier user of technology. And on-site agents, I think that this generation of on-site agents are really hungry for more technology versus a decade ago. People were definitely more standoffish, for sure. I mean, I remember people quitting when we put certain tech in place at some of my builders. They were older, and that was over 10 years ago. So I think the biggest thing too is cross-training, and some of the things that certain members of the team might be really strong at doing and understanding. And if it's your online sales counselor, have them train your on-site team, and vice versa. What your on-site team is, have them strengthen your OSC team. It's only going to make your team stronger through this season. You can't afford not to be showing up where your customers are. And I remember back in my heyday, I used to think we should just have more OSCs, online sales counselors, and just closers, the people that were our strongest closers. And I know that would probably make some people go, wow, I can't believe she just said that. That's literally what went through my head 10 years ago, that we need more people booking appointments and doing the really heavy follow-up and going out and farming and getting these people and bringing them, and then having really strong people to close. And I still think that could be it too. If you can't if you have people that just don't have certain skill sets, put them where they're really strong, and hire more people that for the areas of your business that you need. And that could be more people out there mining databases, following up, and finding these people. You really need to think, I'm not here to say fire anybody, but I'm here to really think hard about where your people are, keep your strong people, and maybe, if it's easier to find OSCs, hire more OSCs, things like that.
Just make sure that whatever tools you do have, learn how to use them. These are the tools that they're gonna help you sell easier, right? They're gonna make your life better. So we try to make our tools as easy to use as possible, right? It's hopefully it's as easy as using your smartphone. But now if you have some downtime, go in and see, Sarah, like you said, if there's somebody who's better at using certain tools, reach out to them and say, can you train me on this? I want to know how to use this tool so I get better. Now's the time.
I want to speak to both your comments about the emergence of sales tech. MarTech has been popularized over the last 5-10 years. Sales has always been the tech laggard. Now you're starting to see that technology become part of the sales process. And there's actually 3 C's in that sales process. There's converting those leads, there's closing those deals, and it's taking it to contract. So conversion, closing, and contract. And we're seeing different applications and companies that are emerging to fulfill those things, from conversion to closing. You're seeing companies like Novi Homes helping with the sales person communication with the buyers. And then from closing the contract, which, we're seeing extended construction times and, interruptions. You're having companies like Builder Signals from Boca Group and BuilderPad that are helping with that process, so that you can get updates about, how your construction is going, getting approvals during the process, getting your warranties and all the documents that are necessary to close the deal at the end. So we're seeing a lot of sales tech emerging. We want to be part of that as well to help pass the data around. And, basically, I'm just going to wrap up with the final C's here. All the stuff that we're capturing through all these, connections, communications, and collaboration is creating a lot of data. Like C here is collect that data, analyze it, start to establish, understand trends and popularities, and then take that data. And then these last C's here, confirm, correct, and calibrate. Take all that data and learn from it, and then improve your processes. Learn how to design better homes, learn how to better resonate with your customers, and improve your processes and training, and maybe, focus back on your core competencies. And I'm just going to end it here with the final C's here. And this is really for the big C, which is all of our careers. I think we need to continue on to have continuous improvement, regardless of the highs and lows. Celebrate your achievements, and then congratulate those around you, encourage them, because, we'll get through this, but it takes a really collaborative effort.
What's the letter of the day? Hey, what's the letter of the day?
ETC. See you later.
Thanks, guys, for joining us today. This podcast was brought to you by Letter C, and I hope you found it entertaining. And what's the C for? Oh,
constructive. Constructive for our industry.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.